Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I am your host, Corey Derrick, and alongside me, as always, is the Jotun Tote, the Vault Dwelling, the Mayor of the Deepstone Crypt, the flawless Josh Finney.
I haven't been flawless in a few weeks. I haven't played Trials much. I definitely didn't play this last weekend. I saw the responses to matchmaking within an hour of it going live and was like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah,
it's like that scene out of the second Pirates of the Caribbean when Orlando Bloom's like, I won't leave without Jack Sparrow, when they're all arguing on the beach. And they see Johnny Depp round the corner and he's like, hey, look, there he is. And then he sees all of the Islanders chasing him with spears, and he just like very quickly goes, nope, time to go.
Yep.
That's what I felt like looking at the Trials stats through Friday afternoon. I was like, oh, I was in a rush to get home.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not now. This was the first week ever in the history of Trials of Osiris that there was not a shotgun in the top 10 most used weapons.
Wow.
Thank you for that, Widow's Court. But also, fuck you for putting like 3 bows in the top 10.
Yeah, I hate Widow's Court. Mostly because I can't snipe or use bows.
I hate Widow's Court in normal Crucible. What makes you think I want to play it in 3-on-3?
Right? God. So bad.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. Dude. So, okay, before we get into the Destiny stuff, Josh, I have the Jets Colts game on the other monitor. And watching the Jets and how bad they are reminds me of how much I used to watch a terrible Browns team for like 20 years.
Yeah, there's, man, the most tortured fan bases in the NFL have to be, like, in order from, like, having the best situation to the worst right now has to be the Browns, the Jets, and the Lions. The Lions will always be at the bottom of the pile.
God,
always.
dude, the Lions, dude. Like, there was like 4 games where they were like on the verge of winning and they lost in the last second.
Man, they lost like 46-7, I think, against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Who are not good at all.
Nope.
It's just like, you know, last week Jacksonville made Geno Smith look like Patrick Mahomes out there.
I know.
God damn. I was like, oh man, we're about to get a shutout. And as soon as those words escaped my lips, touchdown Jacksonville. As soon as I said it.
Speaking of Jacksonville.
But then we ran the onside kick.
Speaking of Jacksonville, did you see who the Packers are re-signing as their backup quarterback?
Oh man, the legend himself.
Blake Bortles.
Jason Mendoza is proud somewhere in the good place. Blake Bortles rides again, baby. Thank God we weren't the ones who signed him.
Oh, man, dude, the good place. What a show. That is a show.
What a fucking show.
Love that show.
But Corey, there's in other video game stuff.
I know.
We got that campaign video for Halo Infinite last week.
We did. Let me tell you, it looks
really good. I think we talked about it slightly last week. That looks awesome. The IGN coverage this week has been really cool too, seeing the new multiplayer map.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that McCaffrey has gotten to play it really, really has me like heated.
Mm-hmm. But
then I also remember that he's like probably the only person in the industry who's like covered Xbox since its inception.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, at a major outlet. I should preface that because Danny Pena has done incredible work over at Gamertag.
No, I think we know. I think we know
Xbox.
Yeah,
but man, just reading that and like doing the ride along in the level today, it was so cool. It just reminds me, like, no matter what we may think about the stories that 343 may be telling in Halo, like, just goddamn, those are some great designs.
God.
Those games are designed so well. Like, seeing the up close character models in last week's Inside Infinite, incredible.
Craig the Brute.
I can't wait to lose myself.
Craig the Brute got a facelift.
Dude, Craig the Brute is ready to go on Halo Bachelor.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That man is ready. He is ready for his close up.
Man, dude. Looks great.
It's been a great week. I mean, you got that. You got all the Halo stuff. The Forza reviews dropped in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Which I'm playing Forza as soon as we're done here. I'm loading up Horizon 5.
Yeah, because it's ready for preload, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, I preloaded 2 weeks ago, I think,
I have it preloaded.
and I
I don't
bought
know
my
if I.
VIP pass. I bought my VIP upgrade last night
Okay. Do you need the VIP pass to play it early?
to play tonight. Yes.
Even if you're a
Yes. Game
uh,
Pass. So it goes live tonight if you bought the premium edition, or if you buy the ultimate add-ons package, which comes with the VIP pass, the car pass, both DLCs, and I think it comes with something else. It comes with the early access. You can play for this weekend with that, and it'll go live at midnight Eastern. Midnight, yeah, it'll go live. So I'll have a little bit of time after we get done recording this. And then that add-on with Game Pass is like $45, I think. I'm like, okay, I play so much Forza, especially Horizon, that this was kind of a no-brainer. Me and A1 Johnny were talking about this the other morning. We were texting each other, and we're like, oh, this is a no-brainer for us. Like, I played so much Horizon 4 over the last 3 years. It's disgusting. Found out this afternoon it's got Atmos and Dolby Vision support.
Yeah.
Which is always really cool to see. And Corey, we saw Elden Ring this morning.
Yeah, I know you're excited about that.
Good. It looks so good. I still don't know if I want to pay $70. And then, like, real quietly, like, Gran Turismo kind of eked its way in there this afternoon.
Yeah, then they
Just
reveal
guys, don't forget about us. We're here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, we're that other car game for that other console.
We're that other car game that hasn't had a good installment since the PS3. I really shouldn't clown on Gran Turismo because I mean, like, 3, 4, and 5 are like arguably the best racing games of all time, like racing sims. But in like for everything, like if you want a hardcore sim, I think the PS2 and beginning of PS3 era Gran Turismos are probably the best ever made. Even though they've gotten better looking and more cars since then. I think definitely like the later Forzas, like Forza 4 and 5, probably give them a run for their money. Just. Man, Horizon just like dwarfs everything else, I think.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'm ready for Horizon. I'm not the biggest racing guy, and it's usually like every other that I'll play some sort of racing thing.
I like arcadey racers. So like I was always a big Need for Speed kid. Need for Speed, and I liked Project Gotham. But man, like regular Forza's never really caught on for me. Gran Turismo. I liked Gran Turismo 3 as a kid because that was like the pinnacle of racing games when I was 8. But now it's like, oh man. Like, if Gran Turismo 3 were to be put on PS Now tomorrow, I don't know that I would rush to play it the way that I would Mario 64. Or the way that I would, like, if Forza Horizon 3 magically... Well, I mean, I shouldn't say Horizon 3 coming back. I still have it downloaded, but... if it were made to purchase again, how quickly people would flock to go buy that game. Especially the Hot Wheels expansion. But man, good week for non-Destiny games.
Right. And if you're a JRPG fan, Shin Megami Tensei 5 got some great reviews as well.
That comes out next week, right?
I think it's out Tuesday. But the embargo lifted today. Game Informer saw as a review in progress, but Nintendo Life gave it a 9 out of 10, and IGN gave it like an 8.5, I think. So
IGN and GameSpot both gave it 8s this morning. It's got an 87 on Metacritic. I mean, it's reviewing really well.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, like its little brother Persona is definitely the more popular game. But yeah, Shin Megami Tensei. I've seen a lot of people say play it like Pokemon and not like Final Fantasy, and that's honestly just so interesting to me. Like, in terms of, like, changing your team up. That is a game I will not be playing. I will watch other people play Shin Megami Tensei, but I have zero interest in this game.
Yeah. No,
I fell down the Persona 5 and 4 and 5 rabbit holes, and I'm not looking to do that with Shin Megami Tensei. If I'm going to do it with any JRPG this fall, it'll be with Tales of Arise.
Yeah.
But even that, I'm like, oh, God, I don't know if I got 90 hours to dump into a JRPG right now. I've barely touched a Metroid Dread. I'd really like to play like this month is cleaning out what's left of my 2020 backlog. I'm planning on getting to Ratchet and Clank and probably Returnal this month. Because once December 7th hits, that's it. That's it. Nothing else is getting played if it's not a shooter for like the next 3 months.
Right.
So
That's fair.
But speaking
I
of
did
those
play.
shooters, Corey.
Oh, before we get to that, I did play.
Yeah. No.
I did start playing Guardians of the Galaxy this week. By the way,
How is Guardians of the Galaxy?
let me tell you this, Josh. If you don't have a PlayStation 5 or a Series X, I would not play it. I played it. I even played it on the Series S, dude, and there's no performance mode on there.
Oh,
it's locked at 30, and it's really unresponsive.
So it's kind of wild because like this is a game like you and I both were like, we're interested in this, but because we were a little bit higher on it coming out of E3 than most.
Yeah.
Like at the same time, we were like, they keep showing this portion over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like this doesn't bode well. And now you got people coming out saying like, man, I like these Guardians way more than I like James Gunn's, and that's just kind of wild to me.
It's
like the story is shockingly heartfelt, apparently.
Yeah, I'm only about an hour in because like I was trying to figure out how I wanted to talk about it. So I played the first chapter on through the Switch Cloud, which is not the way to play that game. I played about a half hour on the Series S, and I couldn't stand it because it was so unresponsive and the frame rate was just like not. But the Series X version, man, feels real good. And
so I dubbed this is going to be my Black Friday pickup because I'm convinced this is going on sale for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it definitely. This is what I said last night on Boss Rush when we were talking about it. I said, I really like it. I really enjoy it. This game feels like one of those games that you should wait for a Black Friday sale and get for like $30 or $40.
I'm just shocked at the amount of people who have this like in their top 10 of the year so far. Like, and every single person I've seen listed in there is they're shocked themselves that they have it up there.
Yeah, no, I was shocked.
The number one thing that says to me is you never played Deus Ex because Eidos is a great studio.
Mm-hmm. Or even Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Like I feel like there's a lot of that DNA in it a little bit. Like it's definitely a light action RPG. Giving commands to your teammates is really it's really intuitive actually, and like the banter and just like choosing different routes of conversation is really fun. And you can kind of choose which route to take Star-Lord if he wants to be like a dick or if he wants to be like the lovable meathead, like it's really cool. I'm about an hour and a half in. I gotta tell you, it was a surprise so far. Plus like the character actors for each character, like Drax is really like, he's different enough from Dave Bautista to feel unique, but it's just as funny, which is cool.
I definitely want to play this when it goes on sale. Like I have 3 or 4 games I want to pick up this month if they go on sale for Black Friday. I want to grab Guardians. That's probably when I'm going to grab Ratchet and Clank and Returnal. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit more complicated because it's like, I have the digital console. Like, I want to be really careful with the games that I buy for that right now until I can get a disc PS5. I mean, God, look at me. I'm like the epitome of being an asshole right now.
If you get that disc,
I have a digital one, but I need a disc one.
If you get that disc one, you tell me because I will take that digital one off your hands.
Oh yeah. I got that sexy Halo Xbox coming in next week.
Ooh. Neat.
I'm ready. It should be in the air by the time we do next week's episode. But Corey, we're here for one reason and one reason only.
Yeah.
As we are every single week.
Yes, Destiny. 15 minutes into the show.
The Trials update for the week.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Man.
Oh, man, this is...
Trials.
I'm glad that they've made it. They do make it really clear in here that next week is probably going to be the last time we get an update on Trials for the foreseeable future. It's going to be an update on Trials Labs and kind of their plans for Trials for the rest of the season through the launch of Witch Queen. So for those of you who do not play Trials, rest assured, we've only got like 2 more weeks of talking about this. The population has dwindled, and it's still high, but it's dwindled enough now to where a lot of the casuals have all left. And a lot of people like me who are like, I'm not like, oh, I'm ultra sweaty, but I'm also like, not like, oh, I just want to play quick play. Like, I actually feel really comfortable in a competitive mode now.
Yeah.
Or even we're like starting to back off. I'm like, all right, if I've got time, I will, but I'm not going to specifically set time aside to run and do it. And it's not like, oh, I don't want to challenge. It's just, I am running into those people now where it's like, oh, double gilded flawless, like in my second match. Pass. I don't want to do this. Like, the first month and a half was great. I didn't see a single person with a flawless title. I didn't see unbrokens. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm just chilling. I was playing people who were my skill level, and I really enjoyed that. Now it's kind of the opposite. Like, I have a limit to how much I'm willing to punish myself. And okay, if there's an adept weapon I really want, like, I should have played this last weekend for Shayura's as an adept, but there's nothing that can make me go do Widow's Court.
Right.
Nothing at all.
We were talking about that before we started recording. Like, Widow's Court is it makes me feel like a terrible human being in a lot of different ways.
It's just like that, and Reed's Regret are really the only two that I want adept, that I want a good roll on adept. But Reed's, since it's in my pool now, it's like, oh, well, I can just go get a 7-win passage on anything. I only have to go flawless. I just get 7 wins and I can turn it in now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool, because that was the first week I went flawless, was when Reed's was up. So now I just kind of want to go back and boogie for that whenever it happens. You know, maybe get another map or two cleared, like work a little bit on this title. But you can rest assured, first Trials weekend of Witch Queen, or when that population spikes again, that's when I'm going for that Passage of Confidence for that title. That's the one I'd like to earn just once. I'm never going to gild it. I'd like to earn it once and be like, all right, my work here is done.
Right.
I got something I never thought I would do. I've already gone flawless like 3-4 times. Again, things I never thought I would do.
Right.
But trialsing aside, trialsing aside. Trialsing aside. I really like how blunt Bungie is in the TWAB this week about this. They haven't responded to the Reddit thread. I wouldn't respond to the Reddit thread. It was really toxic last week, and so were the Twitter comments. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't want to wade into any of that right now. Last weekend, we tried out changes to matchmaking and trials. We shifted to a system that put some focus on overall wins, pushing players into different buckets depending on how much they had played and won on a given weekend. We are incredibly happy with the amount of data we were able to collect. The system did not meet the goals we established on Thursday. As we continue to hone in on what settings we want for trials overall, we appreciate those who have been hopping in for a few cards and sounding off with feedback. So compared to 3 weeks ago, when we got some of the numbers initially, because they seem to be giving us like big dumps of data whenever Iron Banner weeks come. Right. It's like, oh, we get 3 weeks of trials and then Iron Banner, which it's breaking it up nicely, right? Average matchmaking time was up by 10 seconds, but if you were on the bleeding edge of win counts, your matchmaking times could easily be anywhere from 2 minutes to over 5. We saw that with, I believe, True Vanguard and Grenadier Jake, I believe, both had that issue this past weekend. And the week before, for that matter, of where their matches were taking forever to match because they're going flawless multiple times in a weekend. Overall games played was down 33%.
Wow.
And blowout rate went up to 28%. So it went up slightly from 25% to 28, which they've said that's kind of the danger zone right there. But the games dropping doesn't shock me. This is a pattern we see every single season. You will see trials dips down, and so much of that is because it's predicated on, well, you have to go flawless or nothing. And by now in the season, casual players have gotten their loot. That you've more than gotten your loot if you're just feed in and playing a card or two on a weekend. You have definitely gotten your rewards by now. At this point, it is a lot of the people left are ones trying to go to the Lighthouse. I don't need any more Messenger or Shayura's or Reed's Regret rolls normally because I have God rolls on those weapons. I have a great Eye of Soul. I have a great Adept Eye of Soul. I have a great Adept Messenger now. Until they refresh the loot pool, if they were to bring in Astral Horizon and Tomorrow's Answer. I think it's Tomorrow's Answer. and a few of the other weapons from the initial Trials launch, Summoner, for example, the auto rifle, then I would have me, and I'm sure a lot of the other people who are just kind of in that weird middle ground that I described earlier, would have a lot more of a reason to go in and play. And I'm really crossing my fingers that the December update is going to change out some of the weapons a little bit. Maybe let Igneous Hammer and Eye of Soul take a break for a little while and bring those other weapons in. Or just add them permanently. What harm can it do having 12 guns in the loot pool when you can choose your own loot?
Right.
But that's a big reason why we're seeing the numbers dip. So now it's the people who want to go flawless multiple times in a week, or who, want to stream it, they want to do carries, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's really hard to get the casual and kind of in cameras we call consumer, prosumer, and professional. It's kind of hard to get those prosumer players in there, right?
Right.
Like me and A1 Johnny, we were talking earlier today, and we're like, cool. We're going back. We're going back to match. We're going back to the flawless pool. Okay, we didn't even play last weekend. I had a terrible experience on Cauldron weeks ago, so I didn't even touch it this past weekend. I was busy. I've got some personal family going on right now. It's it's not the thing that it was in September and October where I'm like, oh my god, I gotta rush to be there. I gotta be on for Trials this weekend. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. If there's only a few weekends a season, which for most of us there will be, if there's a new weapon or two debuted, a new set of armor, then a lot of us will go, oh, that's when I want to tune back in. And that's okay. That's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think we need to explore a way to keep those player counts kind of consistently high. And I think you're kind of hitting that. Even though you're still having a dip, they're still staying pretty decently up there.
Right.
But there you go. Solo play went up a bit. Fire team play, either exclusively or part-time, went down by about a third. Low to average skill players played about the same, whereas high skilled players played significantly less, and the highest skilled cohort playing 2 hours less on average than in previous weeks. That's pretty wild that super skilled players were playing on average 2 hours less a weekend. Mm-hmm. And fell off in droves, which seems kind of contrary to the opinions that we've seen stated on Twitter and on Reddit. And I think this is something I have to do, is remind myself that the people who go on those sites, or who listen to pods, who are seeking out information about this game, are usually, I'm not saying they're the top skilled players, but they're the ones who are much more ingrained in this and are more likely to engage week to week,
right,
with a limited event.
Yeah.
What they say in this next paragraph, and then this is the last thing they say about Trials here. There are some positives. Most of our data is either negative or neutral. Combined with the feedback on social media, this has fueled our decision to move back to purely card-based matchmaking with a flawless pool for the foreseeable future. Next week, we'll have a Trials Lab pre-brief and details on some other plans we have for the mode between now and the Witch Queen. I didn't think it was necessarily a bad idea to get rid of the flawless pool last week. Mm-hmm. I was actually really shocked at the negative attention that got, because that's something I've seen people calling for, is to get rid of it. And then suddenly the calls were like, no, please give it back.
Right.
Because I think the way in which they went about it was pretty rough. It still kind of had the same result. Well, if you don't go flawless in your first 2 or 3 attempts, you better not even play the rest of the weekend. You're going to match against people who have won 30, 40 matches, whether they've gone to the Lighthouse or not.
Right.
And that's not fun for anybody. That's not players on your skill level. That's just players who sunk a lot of time in, like you.
Right.
So kudos for moving back to this. And I have a pretty strong feeling that the flawless pool is probably going to be a thing through, I would say, at bare minimum, early January. I really can't. They were working on this solution for about a month and a half. I can't imagine, with Thanksgiving, with Christmas, with New Year's coming, and the anniversary event launching, and the massive update that's going to come with that, I cannot imagine forcing out another matchmaking change before the end of the year.
Right.
This feels like something you probably want to get out there in that dead zone in January and be like, hey, can you guys come try this out for us, please, before Witch Queen comes? Please, please, please. Because Trials probably won't come back in the Witch Queen until at the weekend after the raid. Mm-hmm. So they're going to give you 3-4 weeks to level up. You'll have they're not going to introduce trials on a raid debut weekend.
Mhm.
Just like I think they said they don't want to have that or Iron Banners going on raid debuts. Because obviously they want the community's focus there. They don't want people who want to do everything to have to choose between, do I try and get my first weekend completion, or do I go play trials? Do I go do Iron Banner because there's 4 new farmable weapons and some of these may be best in class and we just don't know enough about them yet?
Right.
So I'm okay with the changes we've been doing to trials, but please God, I hope we're done with them. We've done enough. We've had like 8 or 9 weeks of data from trials overall. We're done. We don't need any more.
Right.
We don't need to see anymore. We don't need to do anymore. There is nothing else that needs to be done on this end. And that's not me being like selfish or being a prick about it. That's just me being like, okay, you have enough data to work with. Determine what you need to do. Like, kudos to having all to changing it week to week, but it's becoming a bit jarring. I think we can all universally agree the first 2 to 3 weeks were probably the best weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Week 1 and week 2 especially seem to have been the most well-received weeks. I'm not ready to pull the trigger. Like I said last week, I'm pull the trigger and pull the panic alarm and say we need to go back to how it was week 1. Because I personally only got to play a couple matches week 1. But I didn't have like the world's greatest experience. Like in retrospect, how I had in weeks 2, 3, and then the one right after the second Iron Banner, I had much better experiences. But I'm also not ready to be like, well, let's keep experimenting. Like, no, let's go back to how it was like mid to end September. Right. And I think that's at least a neutral ground for this for most of the population.
Yeah.
Maybe not for your top tier players, but I feel like for the rest of us, that's a pretty even ground. And it felt more like skill based than like connection based or win based. So I don't know. I hope next week is the last time we talk about trials because I'm really tired of talking about trials every week.
Yeah, I mean,
there's not a whole lot more we can really say at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I just want them to take this data and figure it out, and tell us when it's ready.
Right.
So,
and I mean, we've said for a long time, if you were going to do it, this was the season to do it because 3 weeks. Or we would normally have like 3 weeks left in a season. So if you had done this during a regular season, it would have been a whole up and down season of trials changes. Get it done now. You've still got the back half. You're going to have an influx of people coming back for the anniversary, coming back for Dawning, for Moments of Triumph, things like that. Cool. Then we can play out some of these changes with a bigger audience. Mm-hmm. We know there's going to be another trials lapse happening in December. At least that's when it's planned for. I wouldn't be shocked to see the solo node come back. The freelance node, I think, is probably going to become a permanent staple. But I'm not sure. Like, I personally, even when the solo node was up, I was still having a better experience in the regular playlist than I was in solo.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So we'll see what happens next week. I don't think there's anything else that Corey and I really can say on trials at this point.
I don't have anything else to say. I mean,
if you want to hear other thoughts on trials, go listen to like the last 8 episodes. And that's not me being sarcastic or anything like that. Genuinely, since mid-August, we've been talking about trials changes, revamps, plans, etc. Mm-hmm. It's been 3 months. I'm really tired of talking about trials.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about something else.
Let's talk about something else. Why don't we? Bungie Bounty is coming back. We haven't had a Bungie Bounty in like a year.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. There's a spiffy emblem you can earn from that. They're going to have it both in Crucible and in Gambit. And whatever streamer is the Bungie Bounty target is going to bring it up before or at the top of their stream. And they're each going to stream for a couple hours. And they've got just a ton of people across different days, time zones, etc. It's going to go on for about 9 days, it seems. Some really, really well-known streamers in the community, several that I really like. Fallout Plays is going to be doing it. Miss Kenner is going to be doing it. More Console. There's some great people in there. Go do it. Like, if you match in their game at all, either on their fire team or on the opposing team, you're going to get the emblem. Mm-hmm. And I've always been a big fan of Bungie Bounty. I've never, ever gotten one of those emblems, but I think it's cool. It's definitely one of the rare. Those are the rarer emblems in the community. Like outside of like movie and artist of the week, and maybe the fashion ones. This is probably like the next tier of rarity, or in that same one. They're asking for Destiny hero stories. So who's had a heroic moment in the Crucible, fire team member that saved the day before wiping in a Grandmaster Nightfall, massive kill streak that saved your team from a loss, teammate melting a boss or taking out an invader. And I like what they're doing. They want these to be moments that can inspire newer players, and I think this is good. Like this will serve to bring more people in, or encourage those like, hey, you may be really daunted by the size of this game and by everybody saying, oh, it's inaccessible to new players, which it is. But if you see something cool, you might want to try it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I think the same thing I do about this as I do about Threads of Light. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Cool. Just whatever. More things that the community can get involved in. These are largely things that we've always shared in the community. Right. But I'm glad, better late than never, Bungie's finally acknowledging some of this stuff on their own.
Right.
Do Prime Gaming rewards. You can go check that out if you've done it. And that's honestly about it. There's not much else.
Nope.
There will be several extended maintenance times for Destiny throughout the month of November. I suspect this is to get us ready for the anniversary update, so that they don't have to shut down for like a whole night.
Right.
So November 9th, November 16th, and November 30th, starting at 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern, maintenance will begin at 5:45, 8:45. You will be removed from activities, and the game will be brought offline, and then it'll come back on at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So basically lining up with reset.
Right. Cool.
Cool. Okay. But you're going to have extended downtimes, about 4.5 hours or so. No, I'm reading this wrong. 2.5, 2 and some change. 3 and some change. I promise.
Math is hard.
I swear to God. You can get back in at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, which will line up with the new reset times after daylight savings time kicks in.
I forgot about daylight savings time.
Yeah, I did too. That's why I was like, I know I'm doing something wrong here. Maintenance will conclude an hour after.
Do we really need daylight savings time anymore?
No,
we don't.
Let's be honest. We haven't needed it since like the early 1900s.
Like, it's just stupid. Just get rid of it. Who cares?
But yeah, so three of the next 4 Tuesdays are going to have extended maintenance. The only one that won't is the week of Thanksgiving, which makes kind of perfect sense. So 3 of the next 4 weeks leading up to the anniversary update. God, we're only 4 weeks away from that.
I know.
Are going to have extended downtimes. I would be shocked if there wasn't a downtime that morning. I pretty strongly suspect that it's probably going to be brought offline for about 5 or 6 hours that morning to put stuff in. But who knows? That's going to be part of the fun, because as it's addressed here at the end of the TWAB. The TWAB. I had to do it. I had to sneak it in there somewhere, guys.
You did.
The next few TWABs will be a fun time. We'll have more details on upcoming Trials labs. Boo!
Oh.
No trials.
They said fun times.
A kickoff of sandbox conversations in preparation for the December patch and more. I'm hoping that this includes some information. At this point, I think Moments of Triumph is likely going live with the anniversary update.
Yeah, it seems
because that'll still give you nearly 3 months to do it.
Yeah, that seems likely, right? I mean,
I still maintain it would have been perfect to have in November, just to kind of keep some momentum going in the game.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear even Bungie wants you to take a break this month.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was like, maybe they just want you to take a break because they're about to add a whole bunch of stuff to the game to keep you playing until the Witch Queen,
Well, and I mean, we're about to have a complete sandbox shift. Mm-hmm. So Paul Tassi wrote an article on it earlier this week. Of course, Paul did. About what do we know so far, and we've talked about some of them, like Whisper the Worm. We know is coming. Vex Mythoclast, Doom Marchers. There's a few of those. Shatter Dive is getting a big nerf. Most of the patch is kind of a secret right now, though. So I'm very interested to see what happens there. Like, I'm kind of secretly hoping for an artifact reset, even though I don't think it's going to happen.
What if
I desperately want to use something other than Overload and Unstoppable mods?
What if the artifact for the 30th anniversary is like an elite skull?
So I was going to ask, do we think we're out of the TWAB now? We're out of the TWAB. That's all our scheduled content for the night, aside from a couple questions and lore corner. Speculation time. Do we think we're actually getting an artifact with the 30th anniversary? Because that's not. We've had conflicting things. Bungie's been really mum on it. We're kind of just going off the leak, right? They claim there's going to be a separate season pass for this.
I don't think there's going to be a season pass for this.
I mean, if you're going to do an artifact, it would make sense.
But what do you do with the one that continues the rest of the season? Can you swap between them? You think they're going to try to do what Halo's going to do and let you swap between them?
I would think that you would have to introduce something akin to what Halo is going to do.
Or, since so many people are already close to the end of this season pass, you think they just add it on? You think they add like 50 levels to the end of this one?
I would be thrilled. I think the difficult part with that becomes because they would want to build. Again, we're going into purely speculative territory. Supposedly, the anniversary pack was going to have a season pass attached to it that was going to feature Oni armor
and Marathon
in it,
right?
Well, the Marathon armor, I believe we've seen, and that's going to be in the store. I don't know. We know that there's going to be some armor that's like just flat out given to us with the anniversary, because the anniversary pack is giving us a couple weapon skins. It's giving us the helmet skin, which at this point, the helmet mod that you're getting, if it's not Master Chief's helmet, you've just completely failed all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing. If it's a universal helmet mod, that's the only thing I can possibly think of that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a couple ships and some sparrows and some emotes are going to be a part of it also.
Mm-hmm. There has to be more Halo stuff involved in this, right? Like, it just feels like with Bungie's history, like that's where, like, I know people know that, like, no Marathon and no Oni and stuff, but Halo was Bungie until Destiny, right? Like, I mean,
you got to think that the Halo stuff is partially being kept on the down low by Bungie, because Bungie likes to surprise people. Look at how often we've gone into an event not knowing what's going to be available until the day that we load in.
Yeah.
Unless you have data miners, obviously. Look at how often we haven't been told things by Microsoft until the last minute. I think Microsoft probably wants all eyes on them for Halo's promotion. And so I think it is extremely possible we load in that morning, and that's when we see all the Halo content. Is when we load in. Because that's the day before Infinite then. It's the final push to get you pumped.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because right now they're rolling out short films for Infinite. They did the campaign overview. We're probably getting another one on the 15th. We got the IGN First series with Ryan McCaffrey going on. I wouldn't rule out one more flighting test, like maybe the week before Thanksgiving. The weekend before Thanksgiving. The weekend after. I wouldn't rule that out. There's so much coming. Like, Halo basically has an entire month to itself now to build up.
Yeah.
Now that Forza's out and Call of Duty will be out by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah.
Like, you've got Battlefield, but I think the hype for Battlefield kind of tapered off after that absolutely atrocious beta.
Yeah. That and the delay, right? Like,
and the delay
company with the delay,
favors.
like, when it was supposed to come out would have been the perfect time for that game to come out, and now that it's just lost in the shuffle, and Halo basically being free to play and Call of Duty being Call of Duty, and it's just it feels lost again, So
unfortunately, and that's a shame, because I really like Battlefield, but I did not enjoy my time in that beta at all.
Yeah.
I think that you've got an interesting firestorm here, though, and we know that Microsoft and Bungie are real close. I mean, there's the possibility that we see something on Halo on the actual 20th anniversary of Halo on the 15th of this month, that maybe Bungie goes, hey, we not only want to celebrate, we have an anniversary coming up that we're starting to celebrate in December, but this is the 20th anniversary of our best known game, of the house, the game that built Bungie, essentially, and the house that built Xbox. Like, we wanted to have something to celebrate. Like, we've seen the cosmetics for Master Chief Collection this week, and they're all so good.
The Xbox and the Duke shoulder pads are so cool.
The Duke shoulder pads are great. The knitted grunt backpack.
Yeah.
And I love the Orion armor is what I really want. The armor from the very first Halo reveal.
That's from like the third person like weird thing, right?
That is from the 1999 debut of Halo.
Yeah.
Back when Halo was going to be an RTS.
God, dude, remember that? Oh my gosh.
It went from an RTS to a third-person shooter to an FPS. And who would have... I went back and read the classic review that Game Informer did, and Andy McNamara and Andrew Reiner in their review and in the second opinion both are like, we never could have guessed this. It's etched into my mind forever. I know we're getting off Destiny here. We're talking about a little bit of Halo.
I mean, we're going to talk about Halo on this show coming up, guys. I mean, it's going to happen,
I'll never forget the month that the GameCube and the Xbox came out, November 2001. I got my Game Informer and I'm reading it, and I got to Game of the Month. And going in, I didn't know anything about Halo. I was 9 years old. I didn't play shooters. I wasn't allowed to play shooters. And I was hyped up on getting a GameCube. I was begging for one for Christmas that year. I wanted it for Star Wars Rogue Leader and for Smash Brothers. But I knew enough about games at that point and I knew how Game of the Month worked. Like, it's totally going to be Luigi's Mansion. That's got to be what it is. And the paragraph that opened their review section that month is etched in my mind forever. 3 months ago, if you would have told us that we would be picking Halo Combat Evolved over Luigi's Mansion for Game of the Month in November 2001, we probably would have laughed you out of the room. Yet that's exactly what has happened here. And Gene Park of the Washington Post kind of brought this up earlier today. He was talking about, he ranked the Metroid games for a feature. And he was saying, Metroid Prime is his best Metroid game because aside from Doom and Halo, that's probably the most influential FPS ever made. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it came out a year after Halo did and still did something completely different. It told a completely different type of story, different interactivity than anything we'd seen in an FPS so far. FPSs used to just be like, oh, pick up a gun and shoot things. Halo challenged that notion, and especially with the multiplayer.
Right.
And then, Metroid Prime goes on to that, how those two kind of duel back and forth. You look at the release schedules for them, both of their sequels come out in 2004. You have Metroid Prime 2 and Halo 2 come out within a week of each other, which are two of my favorite games ever made. And then in 2007, you have the same thing with Halo 3 and with Metroid Prime Corruption, and which I was definitely less than thrilled with. But by that point, I was like, I'm not playing shooters on the Wii. It's been 8 months. I'm not playing a shooter.
To be fair,
school for Halo
I think if Metroid Prime 3 would have had normal controls, it would have been better. I definitely think it's...
If you would have had something like the Pro Controller then, it would have done wonders for that game.
Like, it's definitely... I still feel like it might be the weakest of the Prime trilogy.
Oh, it is. It's not even a question.
But it's still, like, it still would have been way better with the controller.
Yeah. It's still a great game. We look at things like that, and I find it impossible to think that Bungie's not going to celebrate the game that made them, even though they don't own it anymore. They clearly, the people who work at Bungie and who work at 343 clearly still have a lot of strong connections. Most of the people who wanted Bungie to split off have since left. Or they were in junior positions at the time. People like, Luke Smith. We talked about Luke Smith a lot. Luke Smith had just started working at Bungie when they split off from Microsoft. And look at him now. Now he's the franchise director of Destiny. This dude was their community manager and podcast producer in 2006, 2007. Don't ever tell me you can't do something and you can't make it in this industry. That's a success story right there. But
I mean, you think about it, in the early 2000s, he was writing he was working for PC Gamer? Or who was he working for?
EGM.
EGM. Yeah. So, I mean, Talk about somebody who was on one side and made it on the other, you know what I mean?
Right. And it's like, so I find it impossible to believe that like so many of these people owe their career. Like Lucas talked about it extensively. He did a great interview with Kinda Funny. I don't remember if it was last year or if it was when Shadowkeep came out, but he did a great one-on-one with Greg Miller. And he basically was like, I owe my entire career to this game. I owe my career in gaming to Halo. Like, yes, I was a writer and this and that, but he's like, I was obsessed with Halo and with Halo 2. He's like, he was one of the first guys to do the Scarab gun.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember reading about that. I remember seeing that on X-Play and whatnot, like back on classic G4. I remember seeing that on X-Play and God, what was they had one that was like game tips and tricks or something. I can't remember the name of the actual show, but I'm pretty sure they talked about an Attack of the Show at some point. It's just all these old shows, and like so many of us we're into Destiny because we were huge Halo fans.
Right.
Like it would just be a disservice if we get through this and like.
That's the only reason why I picked up Destiny, right? Because I was huge Bungie and a huge Halo fan, and this was Bungie's new IP, right? It wasn't Halo, but it was like, oh man, Bungie's making a new IP. Let's go check it out.
My exact words when I stepped into the Cosmodrome for the first time and played it was, "This is Halo movement perfected."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the Halo control scheme perfected to me because, God, I like 343 a lot. I love how Master Chief Collection handles. I love the Halo Infinite Flight. Nobody does gunplay like Bungie.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody makes guns feel as unique as Bungie does. And just them having like this massive sandbox to play with. It's like well, we're going to dwell a little bit more on this as we get closer to the 30th anniversary, and I'm sure after we play it.
Right.
But I know that's been kind of a hot topic in the community is what are we actually going to see from Halo? We kind of know what we're seeing from the other franchises. We don't really know Halo. We just know a couple like class armor items. Like what else are we actually going to get here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something they want to keep very secret because they know, we all know also, no matter how little or how much they do, it's not going to be enough for a very vocal part of this fan base.
Right.
And not just the Destiny fan base, but the Halo fan base also. Like, oh, you took too much. And the Destiny fan base, oh, you didn't give us enough. Like, we grew up playing Halo. Like, a lot of it, we're adults with, careers and children now. But we grew up doing LAN parties. Mm-hmm. The early days of Xbox Live.
Oh, my gosh, dude. LAN parties were crazy. And, like, I'll save those stories for when we get into Halo stuff. But, man, LAN parties for Halo 1, man. Oh, man.
Woo. Corey, we have two. We're going to change things up. We're going to do our questions before Lore Corner tonight because I actually remembered that we had questions. So our first question tonight comes from Stonky2 over on Twitter.
Stonky.
I'd love to. Stonks are rising. I'd love to hear what you guys would do if you had control over a brand new seasonal event like Guardian Games or The Dawning. What would it be about? What would the activity be? And what would you want to see for a specific armor set or weapon? Thanks and love the show.
Man.
I'm going to let you go first here, Corey.
Man, I have ideas. When I saw this question, my first thought was like, well, I want Prison of Elders back. But I also was like, I don't want the like wave, like the round based wave based type thing, like because that takes too long. I want an event that takes like 10 or 15 minutes, get in, get out, maybe have some sort of competitive thing, right? Then I was thinking of like, what if you took like almost like a quicker version of Gambit, almost, where you're like, okay, you go into the prison, right, or some place, right, and there's you have two teams. It's like a team-based competitive thing where you're trying to take out these enemies, and maybe you do some objectives during the round, right? And then you summon an enemy, but then like you can invade the other team, right? But you don't have to like collect motes and bank them. It's a quicker version of Gambit. It's a more aggressive version of Gambit almost, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. And then you get like this, like maybe Varix puts it on, and you get this really cool House of Judgment style gear, or maybe Mithrax puts it on, and you get like cool Mithrax themed armor or something.
So, like, I definitely agree with all that. I've said for a while I'd like for Trials of the Nine to come back, but be a Gambit-centric activity, given Drifter's connection to Paladin Orin and the Nine themselves.
Right.
I'd love to see that. We know we're kind of delving into a little bit more of that with the new dungeon that'll be in the Loot Cave, with Zur being the one who guides you through that.
Right.
Into the kind of the realm of the Nine. We know Prophecy definitely fooled around with that a little bit. I would like to see more of that. Maybe bring back, like, I don't know, like, kind of similar to how Gambit Prime was, like, refine Gambit and then make Gambit Prime like a limited time mode as Trials of the Nine. I think that could be really cool. Anything that gives us the opportunity to earn more unique loot is always going to be welcome in my book.
Mm-hmm.
When I think specifically of a timed event, though, that we would get like once a year, I think the easy answer to jump to is Sparrow Racing League.
Yeah.
I don't personally want Sparrow Racing League. I could give a crap if it comes back. If it comes back, cool. Like, that, it is something else for people who do nothing but play this game to play. I think Sparrow Racing League would be fine to come back as like an event in like late May, early June, maybe.
Yeah.
When
was it? When was it the first time around? Was it? It was right after the Dawning, though, right?
Oh man, I couldn't tell you.
I think it was in the winter.
Guy.
I think it was.
I think it was too.
I think it was after the Dawning and before Crimson Days. It was like the event that took place in between that for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. I think you could slot. I mean, you could slot Sparrow Racing League in a couple times throughout the year if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe like, I don't know, like the last couple weeks of whatever season leads in November. If you're going to be on a cycle of February to February, you know, okay, like we know we have Festival of the Lost, but what if we took like 2 weeks off and then we gave you 2 weeks of Sparrow Racing League, something like that. I don't know. I would like to see, if you did Sparrow Racing League, I would like to see some unique maps for it. I would like to see, maybe you have to race through the city streets. Maybe you have to do the Sparrow race without the giant flaming ball behind you, or if it's there, it's not as aggressive from Scourge of the Past.
Right.
I think that could be kind of funny with, like you said, Varix or Mithrax narrating it.
Yeah.
I
or
would
maybe
love that
they like
Mithrax and Saint like buddy commentating it.
Yeah, or maybe like Mithrax and Saint, like they have like since they're buddies, it's like a friendly competition to them, and like three or four players are on one of their teams.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. It'd be like a 3-on-3, but you're on Saint's team and I'm on Mithrax's team or something, and like maybe you just hear their banter back and forth depending on who's winning or not. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I think if you were to bring Sparrow Racing League back and it was something like that, I think it could be really fun. Make 2 or 3 different maps, and just like each time you bring it back, like, oh, here's a map, okay, but like there's kind of like a rotation, like we're gonna do it 3 times in a year, you got 3 different maps to do it in. And like it could be sections that already exist, right? Like you could easily like port the home. I don't know how easy this is to do or not. I'm backseat game developing right now, but like take the streets that we see in Homecoming, in the Chosen or whatever mission it was.
Yeah.
When we stop Gaul, when you're running through the streets, I think that would, like, if you clear up like some of the debris and stuff, that could be funny. Like maybe frames are like taking shots at you as you drive by with like, not with like guns, but like with tasers or something. Like they shut your Sparrow down for a second or two, or they slow you down like it's you're going through like hive gas or something.
Right.
I think things like that could be really fun. And like you said, like Prison of Elders is something I've been a big proponent of. But I think if you do this, give me some like racing suits.
Yeah.
And I want like I want a rapid fire sidearm as the gun.
Ooh.
I want to call it. I don't even know if I want it to be like a legendary or if I want it to be an exotic. I want to call it the Wingman though, regardless.
That'd be cool. It's a good.
If you
that's
bring
a good name.
back Sparrow Racing League, I want racing suits. I want the Wingman, and I want an exotic Sparrow out of it.
Yeah.
But I want it to be like a big bulky Sparrow, like a fucking NASCAR racer.
Like Mithrax and Saint built them themselves.
Oh my god, can you imagine like Saint is like big and bulky and Mithrax is like this like crisp like circuitry and like it kind of looks like not even crisp, but it looks like it's kind of hobbled together and like you do the quest line for the event and Amanda gives you a Sparrow that's just as fast as Always on Time at the end with the perk from Always on Time.
Yeah.
Which is still unique to that Sparrow. Gives you that maybe. I think this would be the perfect time also to introduce something I've been asking for a while. Sparrows 2.0.
Ooh.
Let me mod my Sparrow with certain resistances, with speed upgrades and whatnot, but in exchange for little trade-offs. If you're going to bring Sparrow Racing League back, I got to be able to mod my ride.
Right. Yeah.
And I want Vin Diesel to have a vocal cameo in this.
It's about family.
I want him. No, I want him. I want him to play Marcus Wren, the reigning champion of SRL in canon. I want him to play Marcus Wren, and I want him to pull up beside me in the intro mission for the event, and just tell me the words "ride or die," and then I want the Wiz Khalifa song to kick in.
Oh, jeez.
As I'm rounding the corner and he's going one way, I'm going the other. As he realizes I'm going to win, I want the Wiz Khalifa song to kick in. I want him to Paul Walker his ass.
Wow.
That came out wrong. I don't mean like that. I want him to drive off into the sunset. I don't want him to die in a fiery inferno. I want him to Brian O'Connor himself. That's what I want him to do. That would be my ideal seasonal event, but I want it to happen even for a week or two a season. I think would be great.
Yeah.
But you have a couple different tracks that are like you could even do it during these events. Like you have a Halloween track, you have a Christmas track. Like imagine if you have a Christmas track and there's like dregs and like frames and like sweeper bots on the side who are like throwing snowballs at you as you're driving by, and it's like giving you the frostbite you get in the tower.
Yeah.
How great would that be?
It'd be hilarious. That's funny.
Also, please fix Crimson Days. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. I like Crimson Days. Please fix it. Please bring it back.
Bring it back.
Wow. That's what I would do. And my armor choice is boring, but I stand by the Wingman as a rapid fire sidearm would be great.
It's cool.
You can just reskin Last Hope for me. I'd be okay with that.
That's fair.
Just do it. Just do it.
That's fair. It's
do we have any other comments on seasonal events that we would like to see?
No. I'm good. I stand by mine, but also that's a cool way to kind of upgrade Sparrow Racing League.
I think that's one of the only ways you could like feasibly bring it back.
Yeah.
You would have to make like a whole thing around it, but I think like the introductory time to bringing it back would be just perfect. Do a Sparrow revamp similar to how you did Ghosts. I don't see any reason why we can't have Sparrow mods also.
Yeah.
Sparrow horns, dude. I want my Sparrow horns back. I want to annoy my entire fire team by playing La Cucaracha as loud as it can possibly go. Repeatedly, over and over and over again at the beginning of Deepstone Crypt.
Wow.
Our second question tonight comes from Tom Cat and Socks. Can you guys talk about what builds are your favorite, specifically when pairing exotic weapons and armor together?
I'm going to let you take this one first.
Yeah, so funny enough, I know that John is internally screaming hearing me say this out loud. I've moved away from using exotic armor a lot this particular season. And really since Stasis kind of came into play, because Stasis has allowed for so much more build control just within the class. that I've taken to using that more and more and more. In terms of armor, when I use my armor, I'm usually I'm running a fully masterwork set of legendary armor, obviously. When I use an exotic, typically I put on an exotic to either help with one of two things: to help with my mobility, like I need that just a slight extra boost or an extra speed, so I'll put on stompies if I need those. For jumping puzzles, that used to be my go-to in Whisper of the Worm, and I would switch them off as soon as we got to legitimate enemies, because I was done with jumping by then. But most of mine is really built around just supporting like my stasis ability, specifically melee builds. So I use my stasis melee a lot. I prefer to dump my stuff into artifact perks personally. I think that the artifact perks combined with how stasis is kind of framed out, at least for a hunter, I think it's really hard to argue with that is like the best option right now. And keep in mind, most everything I'm saying is because I focus on PvE builds. I don't do PvP builds really. Again, this is making some people scream internally. I don't usually change my stuff up for PvP unless I was running Celestial Nighthawk ahead of time. Like if I happen to be running Stompies and I go into Trials, okay, I'll leave them on, cool. But I'm not going in there with Orpheus Regs on. I'm not going to go in there with Shards. I have gotten away from using Blade Barrage in there because freeze grenades and shurikens are just so helpful. If they would make a slight tweak to Oath Keepers, that's the one where you get an extra bounce from your throwing knife. If they would make a slight tweak to that and like let my shurikens have an extra bounce or two, I would probably never take those off. One thing I have started to use a lot though, when it comes to a PvP build and using stasis in particular, a friend of John and I's, Max, turned me on to this. Mask of Bacchus. I really like Mask of Bacchus. Instead of having my dodge, it lets me basically blink once. And that is great for ambushing, for maneuverability, for flanking, especially if you're attacking with another person and you use that. Like, then they don't know where to aim their super or aim their heavy or whatever because you're blinking out of the way. I like that. I hate playing against it, and if I hate playing against it, that means it's probably pretty good to be using. That combined with freeze grenades is just, it's dirty. Even in PvE content, it can be pretty good for getting around champions or getting to revives. I've found that out. But I think with that, you need to have high mobility if you're going to do that on a hunter. You probably need to be thinking about doing Shatter Dive and not like I do, which is Duskfield grenades. Because I think if you can use the blink from Bacchus, drop your grenade immediately, you can Shatter Dive before they can do anything. And I say that knowing full well that strategy is probably not going to be viable a month from now. But it is one of the only instances in which I would say, yeah, go ahead and use a Shatter Dive, because if you can put together a combo like that, you honestly deserve to use it. But I think as far as exotics go, for hunters in PvP, I think it's a little bit more difficult. For PvE, I like to pair. I've been using Vex Mythoclast a lot. It's been no secret. I've been using, especially with this season's fusion buffs, with the buff 2 Mythoclast, with particle deconstruction. I've been using it constantly. We do Grandmaster Nightfalls. I take that in there because I mow down the unstoppable champions with it. Not only is it stunning them, it's doing a ton of damage. And if I can get those linear shots, bam, 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 I can pretty much drop a champion right there.
Right.
I think it's really hard to argue with that. With that, I like to pair that with something in my primary slot that can kind of I like to always be building around. So I build around stasis. Like I said, I may not be building it in terms of exotics, but for example, one of the mods I have on my class item, and I wanted to make sure I pulled this up so that I'm saying the name of this correctly. I run Thermoclastic Strike. So solar and stasis melees disrupt combatants, stun them, delay ability regeneration, and lower combatant damage output, and it is strong against overload champions. Refreshes melee ability whenever you or a member of your fire team stuns an overload champion. When we were doing Grandmasters the last couple weeks. I was just standing at a safe distance, just chucking them because you get two at a time, and as soon as they stun, bam, they're both back. It takes two to stun. I'm just continually stunning while everybody else is damaging. And then I've got my unstoppable Vex Mythoclast with me, so that allows me to kind of have a little bit more freedom in how I want to do my build. Do I want to take in Reed's Regret as my heavy, or my Threaded Needle, or do I want Threaded Needle? Or do I want to focus on something else? Do I want to take a sword in for this instance? For my primary, I have found myself running most of the season Peacebound, especially since I got the one with Headstone, so I'm creating stasis crystals constantly.
Mm-hmm.
That's been really useful because you go Shattered, that's extra damage that you're doing, right? I like to do that. I don't know. I think that we're going to see a lot, and I definitely want to talk more about builds going forward because we're getting the Void 3.0 rework with Witch Queen, and that's going to be a big part of what I'm going to talk about in March. God, we're talking like 3-4 months in the future. After we get through that initial raid weekend, I want to start playing with builds then. I want to see like what I can do with, top and bottom tree tether. I want to have as much customization.
Plus you'll have weapon crafting You'll have weapon crafting to go in with those builds
we'll have
too.
Weapon crafting. Like I don't think we have to worry about, this gun's not available anymore because the season is gone. Just go craft it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've made it to where it's less and less about what exotic you have in certain modes. And it's weird, like for hunters right now, I don't think there's. I promise I'm being really long-winded with this, but I'm almost done. We're in a really odd place as a subclass, I think, because I don't think there's like one exotic that is just dominant in either mode. I think Bacchus is pretty close to being dominant in PvP, but I shockingly don't see people use it a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I think for PvE, I mean, I've aired my grievances so many times about this, but it's Celestial Nighthawk. I did have a build last season that I built around Star Eaters, and I was going to do one around Radiant Dance Machines, but both of those got nerfed into the ground immediately and are literally unusable. So right now there's no point. Now I'm going to write down this question because I want to come back to this question in 3 months when we get the Void 3.0 rework, because I really want to build something around Orpheus rigs.
Right.
Orpheus rigs, and I think Graviton Forfeit is another one I want to build some stuff around. I'm really excited to see those, not necessarily get reworked, but I'm excited to see how they're going to fit into Void 3.0. Even Vision Vest. I would say Gemini Jesters are really good. If you're running a high mobility build and you're a hunter, Gemini Jesters and Bacchus are probably the way to go for almost any act. I mean, they can work in PvP or PvE. But if you got to run for hunters, there's pretty much only two choices right now. Like I would say Tether is an option now. It wasn't for a while, but man, you can't. The pure damage output from Celestial Nighthawk is just stupid.
It's stupid.
It's absurd. It's still absurd. Star Eaters would have been so much better. God, I'm so upset about those. I hope those get a rework in December. But before I sit here and keep talking about my build all night, Corey.
I mean, you could if you want.
What do you? I don't want to. I forgot the other part of my build that I do. I did mention to say this. I tend to be the one who runs Focusing Lens for my fire team. I slap it onto my cloak, and I run it. And for those of you who don't know, Focusing Lens, light abilities do bonus damage to combatants affected by stasis. So I, chuck my grenade out there or my stasis tornado, and then we just unleash hell. Especially, with Big Hammer, with shields, with chaos reaches, with Nova bombs. It's great. I mean, it may take us a little while to, kind of make a new Focusing Lens build, because I was doing these back in Hunt and Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But now it goes, okay, we have this. I drop my tornado on whatever boss it is in a GM or on a raid boss, and everyone can just unload, and it's just doing insane amounts of damage. You're one-phasing bosses, right? If you do things correctly. So I would say those are the two most essential things to my build right there. That and just I really focus on mobility and resilience. As a hunter, I'm a little squishy. Um,
Yeah.
Now you can go, Corey. I promise you can go now.
All right. So obviously, I've been pairing the fusion rifles with the mods from the artifact, right? I don't think we need to go into that anymore. The linear fusion rifles with those mods, or the sword, right? Those sword mods and stuff. But so probably about 3 or 4 months ago, which I should probably update these and ask. Speaking of A1 Johnny, he gave me some pretty decent builds for Titans. Because I usually run Solar Titan or Sentinel Titan. I don't really see a decent. I don't really like go out of my way to run the other ones. Although, with that Titan chess piece, obviously Striker Titan is a lot more viable these days. But I've been running a lot of Solar Titan with Worm God's Caress, the boots, the arms. I mean, the arms with the Middle Tree Solar Titan, which is pretty awesome because you can usually just annihilate a ton of guys at once. And I also been trying to run that build a little bit with Dune Marchers. So, and sometimes I pair that with Monte Carlo because it's, why not, you know?
Monte Carlo is great, especially if a melee build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and someone like me who likes to get up close and personal with enemies and not always in the smartest way possible, I just like to run in there and, murder guys. So, that build's fun. I also run a little bit of, when I'm not running, obviously, Helm of St. 14 with the Bubble Titan, right? Like, when I'm running Sentinel, I usually run the Ursa Ferosa gauntlets, and obviously grenades and melees clear adds and heal your team. So that's kind of the build I've been running with. It's more of like a support role.
Mm-hmm.
So I do run that a little bit. So obviously it's not as in-depth, and I've been playing with these with different mods and everything. Because like I've never really played around with builds until this season, really. Or I guess last season, really, like to the extent that we talk about on the show. But those are really the two that I've been messing around with when I'm not using my go-to bubbled Helm of St. 14, obviously. So, but yeah, obviously not as in-depth as yours, Josh, but those are the ones I've been playing around with.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you're definitely playing with more exotics than I am. I've just reached a point of complacency with my build, like where I run stasis so much that I'm secure with not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense though with stasis because there's not a lot of, there's not really a lot, at least that we really know, that really assists a stasis build, right? So,
I mean, there's definitely ones that can help you out with your melee and things like that. And like I said, I've really tried to focus on mine, and this melee has made it so easy for me to play from a ways back. Even nerfing the damage and the tracking for it, has really, really helped.
Yeah.
Like I said, just being able to stun overload champions like that over and over and over, it's great. Like I have the privilege right now of being able to say, oh, I'm just going to run stasis for this season because there's nothing that's really helping. There is stuff that's helping solar, but not to the point where like, okay, I have to run this solar build instead of my stasis build. But I mean, like my armor mods largely stay the same outside of that, like season to season. Like I have a charge. I always have high energy fire on. I like to run charge with light mods a lot.
Yeah.
So that stacks on stacks. Those are pretty common ones for me.
Yeah.
This season just happened to be an awesome season in which there is so much from the artifact that I need to or want to run. I am almost always running Radiant Light and Powerful Friends because I run a lot of arc-based armor on my class. If you don't have either of those mods, those are essential mods to have, I think, for basic builds. Those are two of the absolute best mods you can possibly get. Along with, I would say, High Energy Fire and like the Charge with Light Suite. those are like the ones, if you're wanting to get into build crafting, those are ones you should be buying from Ada when she has them pop up. Radiant Light, for those who don't know, casting your super causes nearby allies to become charged with light. And then because I run more than one arc piece, Radiant Light also gives me a plus 20 to my strength. And then Powerful Friends does the same thing. When you become charged with light, nearby allies also become charged if they are not already, and you get the plus 20 mobility. I get that the basic ones for those can kind of become canceled out, but with that, if everybody's running high energy fire, I'm charging everybody constantly with throwing my super out there as much as I can. With my stasis super, like I'm getting it back pretty quickly. If you're in a scenario where you're needing high energy fire, you're probably creating a ton of warps. Everybody's got masterworked weapons, or they've got catalysts that they've done. They're chucking supers for ad clears. Like, I've been known to get two stasis tornadoes in one Taniks damage phase.
Right.
In Deep Stone. And then when you take things like that, you're getting it even quicker in situations like Atheon, where you're becoming charged rapidly. I have been able to get 2, sometimes even 3 Celestial Nighthawks off on Atheon. If I start off in the room and I shoot my Nighthawk right at the beginning, I will get another one by the time everyone's exiting, and I will usually get one more or be on the brink by the time Time's Vengeance ends.
Right.
Like, it kind of depends on the scenario, but my basic mods pretty much stay the same, especially this season with my special mod artifact allowing me to interchange between stasis and solar. That is just the biggest gift you could possibly give somebody like me. Oh, those are the only 2 things I run. Awesome. If I need to go throw on Nighthawk, I can throw on Nighthawk. Bada bing, bada boom. So, any more build comments before we move on to Lore Corner?
No, I think we can. I think we move on to
Warlocks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Warlocks. Here's my build for Warlock. Hold down X to delete character and start a different character. Bah.
Rude. Rude. The 2 that we're going to read tonight are they're going to be a pair of Zavala stories.
Ooh.
They're going to be from the 2 Nightfall weapons of this season. So the first one we're going to read is the Hothead. Think of it as a weaponized temper tantrum, is what the flavor text says. Zavala swung off his Sparrow in a rocky gulch near the EDZ. Across the wash, a Cabal legionary leaned next to a small shuttle, and a Scion stood at attention nearby. "You Zavala?" the legionary called. Zavala tried not to feel slighted. "I am Commander Zavala," he answered. I can't do it like Lance Reddick, so I'm not doing voices. The legionary squinted and nodded slowly. "Had to make sure," it said. "Security stuff." "Let's do this quick." The legionary pointed a fat finger at the Scion. "The Scion is going to ask you a question. Then you tell me your answer. I go tell Empress Keitel, and that's all." "What kind of question?" Zavala asked. The legionary shrugged. "Only the Scion and Empress Keitel know. Safer that way." Zavala warily approached the Scion. As it stared into him with its single eye, Zavala felt his ears ring. His hand went to his sidearm, but a vision sprang to his mind, vivid and fully formed. Zavala saw the dreaming city. He saw Cabal ships filling the sky, spewing oily smoke. Then an explosion, a sea of explosions, violent, red and black, with the fury of planet killers, unmakers, but concentrated, refined, for the size of the task at hand. He saw death for all in the dreaming city, bodies face down in the crystal grid of their palace. Marasov, Petrovenge, Crosshairs, countless awoken, collateral. For at the bottom of a crater was the shattered body of a crystal-bound hive god, destroyed at her most vulnerable moment, her trickery silenced forever. Then a war, yes, probably, but a small one, and behind it blood on 2 pairs of hands, 2 willing to pay the price for peace. No. Zavala broke the Scion's gaze, and the vision stopped abruptly. The legionary grunted. "That your official answer?" Zavala straightened. "My answer is no," he said clearly. The legionary nodded. "Fair enough," it said, and took a half step back from the Scion. The Scion punched a code into a small wrist-mounted screen. There was a brief chime, a muffled pop, and the Scion slumped to the ground, blood pouring from a wound in its head. Zavala reached for his weapon again, but the legionary laughed and held up a hand. The volunteer knew that's part of the deal. Now nobody knows what the question was except for you and the Empress. Safest that way. "Gotta go and tell her your answer," the Cabal called as it climbed into the shuttle. "Hope you made the right choice." The craft chugged into the sky, its jets spattering Zavala's boots with the Scion's blood. I think this is fascinating because we know that Scions, specifically Callus's Scions, predicted the future. They predicted the future. But they always predicted a future in which Callus was the god of everything at the end of the universe to satisfy his ego. Mm-hmm. Scions seem to continue, at least powerful Scions continue to have this power, it seems. That they can see plausible futures, they can communicate messages telepathically, things of that nature. And I find this fascinating in a number of ways because we know that Keitel has kind of been pushing for an offensive against Savathun, knowing, and she has ships watching the Dreaming City. She has ships watching the Reef. She's ready to pull the trigger, and it almost makes me wonder if there won't be some big event at the end of this season that involves her, the Awoken, Crow, because Crow and Saladin are the emissaries to her. Mm-hmm. That kind of wrap their storylines for the year. Right. Spider we still have to deal with. The Tangled Shores being sunset. Like, is something going to happen? And Savathun ultimately is going to get away.
Right.
Just what are the events that lead to that? Does Keitel jump the gun?
Right.
Does Zavala, is this going to add another layer to Zavala's story of he feels regret for not acting?
Right.
You know, especially if say Witch Queen leads to the death of Ikora. We know somebody is dying, either this season or in the Witch Queen, a major character. Is Zavala going to feel guilt like he did over Cade?
Yeah.
You know, like he did over the Speaker and over the city. Like, at what point do these events, when they're racking up, lead Zavala to resign from his post as commander of the Tower Vanguard? Not saying that he should, but at what point does the guilt become too much for him?
Right. Yeah. So,
and I mean, he just had a dissenter in the city ranks, in the consensus ranks.
Mm-hmm.
One of the leaders has fled. The other, two of them have fled. One is dead. You know, and he's reminded of that repeatedly throughout this season too.
Yeah.
It's just, it's wild. There's so many things here. And it's like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like, the leadership is fractured. Savathun's basically achieved her goal there.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to mount an offensive against her?
Right. Well.
Our second piece tonight comes from the comedian. Aha. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. That's literally the flavor text. Zavala
I get it.
Dully at the,
because comedians are funny.
Yeah, I know, right? Zavala stared dully at the desk on his the papers on his desk. Reports splayed out in front of him. Sightings of Osiris moving toward the Dreaming City. Dispatches for Saint 14 and Crow. Reams of dire investigations from Ikora. On page after page, the name Osiris jumped out at him, and then the name Savathun. He reached for an older report, something simpler buried beneath the damage assessments from the Vex incursion in the Batsa district. The smoke from the attack they had barely cleared, but felt like so long ago. He found Rahul's analysis of the Endless Night. It detailed how the Vex energies pouring from their network blocked the sun, drained the resources of the city, how the pulsing of their particular frequencies made the citizenry paranoid and susceptible to suggestion. Zavala resisted the urge to crumple the report in his fist. Instead, he stood and turned to rest his forehead against the tall window as he closed his eyes. He remembered when he ended Osiris's exile from the city and allowed him to stay in the annex. He remembered when he spoke with him about the death of Sagira, when he consulted with him on what to do with Crow, when he brought him his counsel to meet with Keitel. And he remembered how each time the sun had been shining. This just kind of, again, this adds another layer to Zavala. You know, this is more racked with guilt. You know, he literally let a hive god into the city.
Right.
But he let her in. The Vex almost took over the city because of that. The Elixni were almost wiped out. But yet he's also overseen alliances with the remainder of the Cabal Empire and with the Elixni under Mithrax. We've gained a tentative ally in Keitel, at least for now, and we definitely have an ally in Mithrax.
Right.
So at what point does Zavala think that we have enough for, you know, what we've said is going to be the Avengers Assemble moment of destiny? You got to think that it's coming in the Witch Queen, that this is all groundwork for what's going to happen at the end of that campaign.
Yeah.
whether the raid actually deals with Savathun or not is another question entirely, or Xivu Arath, or the Harbinger. Like there's so much that can possibly happen here, and I think in terms of storytelling, and I think it's great that we read some of these lore pieces, and it gives us an insight into what these characters are thinking, but also for future motivations. We spent a lot of time talking about Zavala and Saladin this year.
Yeah,
because guys are guys that they haven't really been at the forefront of the storylines until recently, especially has been at the forefront of most of the last year of storytelling. Saladin is slowly creeping up there. He's had a lot that's been happening off screen, but if there's anything we know about this franchise, they like to tell stories off screen to prep you for what's coming. So I think that when we take a look at this, Zavala clearly wants some form of revenge against Savathun, but Savathun's been watching him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We know that she was peering through Shax's Ahamkara skull at Zavala, trying to influence him, and we know that from the Traveler's Chosen One. We know that the people in the streets, it says here that they're susceptible to paranoia, anxiety, and trickery and suggestions. They're humming Savathun's song out there. Mm-hmm. Crow is singing it in the helm. At some point, we have to reckon with all of this. Like there's a larger narrative reason for her song. Like this is something that's been in the game since the Red War campaign with the Big Shrieker, literally called Savathun's song. And I think it's great that we've come full circle, even though it's taken 5 years, almost 5 years at this point to do it.
Right.
I think that's great. That's great. To lay these narrative seeds and do it. Like Savathun is something we've built up to since the Books of Sorrow. Since we dispatched Oryx, we've been working up to Savathun.
Right.
We've been working up to Xivu Arath. We know what Savathun looks like. Are we going to see Xivu Arath in the flesh this season too, before the end?
You think?
Are we going to watch two gods duke it out next season?
I wonder if there'll be a weird hive civil war between them.
I think it's definitely possible because Xivu Arath is pretty clearly aligned with the Black Fleet, and Savathun, I don't think she's being entirely. We've discussed this, that
maybe
this isn't the real reason. She is clearly scared of something.
Maybe
but
it's
not Xivu Arath.
Maybe she figured out how to steal the light so she could fight Xivu Arath in the darkness, or whatever power the Black Fleet is giving them.
We know the darkness has passed her over multiple times.
Yeah.
First it went, Aramis, and then figured out how to use it, and then we did as well. Savathun was trying to keep us from talking to the pyramids when they first arrived.
Right.
She didn't want us talking to them. We remember the season of arrivals. We remember the inflection points. Remember the weekly story where she was sending Nokris to stop us.
Right.
And her lieutenants in the Ascendant Plane. She very clearly did not want us. And when that scheme failed, that's when she was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to kill Osiris and I'm going to take his body. I'm going to come to the city as a familiar face.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to really dissect here, but I think these are interesting building blocks for what we know is coming.
Yeah.
So,
man,
that's Lord Corner.
So many questions that you think you're going to know the answer to, and then they're just going to turn it on its head.
Yeah, and that's both exciting and terrifying. We think we have it figured out. In a way, I've just kind of given up on trying to figure out what's going to happen, because there's 50 different plot threads that are all intersecting at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
man, so exciting. I'm so excited, Josh. There's so many exciting things happening in Destiny. I just want to play them. So.
Right.
Well, Josh, is there anything else planned for the evening?
For tonight, no, I don't think so. We were debating if we were going to sneak off and go see Eternals at a late showing, but I don't think we're going to. I'm simply too tired, and she's had a migraine all day. So
yeah. All right. Well, guess we'll wrap the show then. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to Tower Casuals. Remember, you can find us every Friday on your podcast service of choice, on our YouTube channel, and various other places. Josh, thank you for your time tonight. Where can we find you?
At @just__Finn, 2 N's on Twitter.
Nice. You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me hanging out, playing some Destiny. And that's kind of it. You can email the show at towercasuals@gmail.com. You can tweet at us questions at towercasuals. Follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, and review wherever you listen to the show. And until next week, we love you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You need to stop, sir.